Welcome everyone to Chart's webinar series. Sarah?
Hello everyone, this is Sarah Morrissey, your current president of Chart. Today we have a very special session for you called The Training Trends in the Hospitality Industry. This is a topic that is near and dear to all of our hearts, and we have three of our fantastic experts and subject matter professionals here to share with you. We have Colby Hutchinson from Best Western Hotels, Jennifer Swan from First Watch, and Melissa Doolan-Caney from TD&2K. Enjoy.
All right, well, hello everyone. This is Jennifer Swan, and as Sarah said, I am with First Watch Restaurants as the Senior Director of Learning and Development. And of course, we have Colby, who's joining us here from Peru, very far. He's our world traveler. And Melissa joining us. She is, of course, with TD&2K, and they are the wonderful organization that brings us so much of this valuable trends that we'll be sharing today. So we're going to start by kicking it off and getting everyone involved on the webinar. So we would love to pose a question to all of you, and I believe that's next. I think Melissa might be saying a few words, though, first.
Melissa, you might be on mute.
Hello, this is Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
You're live.
Okay, apologize. Thank you guys so much for hosting this. We love partnering with Chart and sharing kind of the insights that we glean not only from TD&2K, but also a survey that we co-conduct with Chart every other year. So we're going to be providing some insights from that throughout the next 45 minutes to an hour. Always a privilege to co-host with Jennifer and Colby, who are one of my favorite trainers and mentors along the way from presenting. I also didn't realize today is such a special day to present. I was just told by my kids that today is National Cookie Day. So you're welcome. Go buy some cookies after this webinar, and let's all celebrate. So a little bit about where the information's coming from. TD&2K stands for Transforming Data into Knowledge. We are a company that's been in business for over 25 plus years. We track over 300 plus companies, over 43,000 restaurants on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So a lot of the information that you're going to be seeing today is coming through our membership in all the companies that submit their data and participate in the TD&2K world. So what are we going to be covering today? We like to call it 60 minutes of fun. Data can be fun, and if there's anybody that can make it fun, it's probably Colby and Jennifer. So we will make this as fun as possible. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. So we're going to start with the state of the industry, really kind of understand from a high level what's happening in our industries, what are the workforce trends, and then go into the trends in training. So a lot of the data that came from the Chart and TD&2K survey, sharing that with you.
Hi, everybody. It's Colby Hutchinson with Best Western coming to you live streaming from Lima, Peru. We want to kick this off with a little question to you, get you guys involved, and really in a positive way. So what do you feel your company is winning in? If we could launch that online poll, you should see a screen pop up. Do you feel that your company is currently winning in training and retention, pay and benefits, engagement, recruitment, or work-life balance? Feel free to go ahead and click any of those options here. You only get one. We have our team back in the office at Chart monitoring the answers coming in. So Tara, when we're ready for it, go ahead and fire away with the results.
We have about 70% of the people in, and they're still coming in. So give me another like 5 seconds before we end it.
Fantastic. Hopefully everything that's on the screen is relevant to all the trainers that are here on the call. Looks like the quick poll is closed, and it's a pretty good distribution here. Seems like a third of the people here on the webinar feel like their company is winning in work-life balance. We've got another 24% that feel like their company is winning in training and retention, followed by engagement, pay and benefits, and finally recruitment, rounding off the bottom 5. So we wanted to kick this off with a real positive note to figure out from you what you feel like you're winning in. From an overview, we're going to talk about the overall industry now, and it's not all rainbows and sunshines. What you see here is from a meeting that happened at Duke University, where they have some leading chief financial officers, and they give a global lookout. 38% of those CFOs thought we would enter into a recession first quarter of 2020. And you can see that number increases as we move later in the year, 67% in Q3 2020, and then 84% think that the economy will enter a recession into the first quarter of 2021. Obviously, that's after some of the elections and the geopolitical things we have happening in the United States right now. But this is something to absolutely keep our eyes on, as it could affect what we do and how we run our businesses. So there's a lot of changes that are happening right now geopolitically and with the economy that will absolutely impact the hospitality industry. So let's talk about a 2019 year-to-date summary. I'll hand it over to one of my colleagues.
Yeah, thanks, Colby. So this is from TDN2K, our latest data that we share just with our members, or we're able to share it with you all today. And there's a lot of going on this slide, but I wanted to call out a few things. One is comp sales and traffic are down year to date. It has been for several quarters. Traffic has always been a struggle, and just know that this is strictly about the restaurant industry, which is what TDN2K covers. Food and beverage sales are down, dine-in sales are down by 3.2, but what's interesting is when you start to look at those to-go sales, third-party delivery to-go is really what is carrying the industry right now in a positive comp growth with 8.7%. Our guest check has grown by 3.1% year to date, so we're also seeing increased guest check, which is also helping the comp sales. Top performing segment for the year to date is fine dining, where the worst performing segment is upscale casual. Speaking of third-party delivery, I know that's a hot topic. We actually just produced a survey here that was helpful for our members. It was interesting, though, is that when we start to look at third-party delivery and investments in training, I wanted to pull this slide because I think this directly relates to all of you. When we ask to companies where are their investments happening for third-party delivery, restaurant level training was the most popular, followed by packaging innovation, front of the house equipment or technology, back of the house, as well as corporate office technology. So that training aspect is really, really key to being able to be successful in that third-party delivery and to-go options, which is really where we're seeing the growth in the industry right now.
So I'm with First Watch Restaurants, as I mentioned at the beginning, and we have about 400 locations nationwide. We're primarily breakfast, brunch, and lunch. But I can completely tag into what Melissa is saying, because one of our biggest areas of growth is third-party delivery. We've recently rolled out third-party delivery to about 50 of our restaurants and have a plan to roll out much more in this coming year. But not only are we discussing the third-party options, but also everything from environmentally friendly to-go packaging, because again, that is a big piece to what we want to be able to do, at least in our organization. And we're also even looking at tamper-resistant packaging, because of course, whenever you hand over your food to someone else to deliver to another party, can always be a little bit nerve-wracking. But it was no surprise to me that there is a percentage increase in to-go sales because so many people nowadays want to be able to do things mobilely and be able to stay in the comfort of their own homes and have, food brought to them. So very interesting.
From the resort and hotel side, there's three kind of developing trends that we should keep our eyes on from an industry, and not just for the hoteliers that might be on the webinar here, but some of these things can also impact restaurants. The first is resort fees. If anybody's been paying attention to what's been going on with resort fees, there's currently a couple states that have actually now filed suit against one Marriott and two Hilton regarding deceptive advertising and resort fees. And there's been significant blowback coming through the Las Vegas hotels recently through social media channels and even some of the primary media. The resort fees in Las Vegas have exceeded $50 in some cases, and 2 months ago, a lot of the resorts that are part of like MGM and the larger companies there started including mandatory service charges for all beverage service throughout casinos. That's the first time we've ever seen that in casinos in Las Vegas. So the resort fees and these mandatory service charges are really a way for hotels to try to sneak in extra revenue. And depending on where you fall on the side, you're either for it because of the revenue impact, or you're against it because of the customer experience that it delivers. But this is something that is evolving and even has the federal government looking into it now. Second trend related back to what we do in trading is really some of the labor savings initiatives that are underway in the hotel side. So as we know, labor is very, very tight right now, and turnover is a problem that you'll see we're all trying to solve for. So things like the mobile apps for all of the hotel chains, allowing guests to check in early, allowing guests to do mobile check-in, in some cases even select their room, is really driven from a way to drive customer experience, but also reduce the labor they need at the front desk to run it. You're starting to see a lot of hotels offer green, what they call them green initiatives, in essence providing additional reward points for whatever program you're involved with to give up housekeeping service for a day. Again, there's a positive impact on the labor requirements if people elect points in lieu of housekeeping. So you'll start seeing more technology investments trying to increase efficiency and speed, and you'll also see other offerings for guests allowing them to opt out of services. That'll become more of a trend here as we proceed into 2020 and beyond. And the last big trend to watch is distribution costs and scale in hotels. Distribution costs would be things like Expedia and Booking.com and how people actually book their reservations. The third parties on the hotel side play a significant role, and those costs seem to be increasing and increasing. It's going to be more and more difficult for independent hotels to maintain low distribution costs because of the idea of scale and all of the brands. A few years ago when Marriott bought Sheraton, they became the largest hotel company in the world, and that scale allowed them to negotiate the lowest distribution costs. And as a result, everybody else is playing catch up. Part of this is the major hotel brands are launching new hotel companies. And as you'll see in the next slide, these new brands that have been kind of in the test kitchen, if you will, for hotels are now not only in market, but really starting to gain a foothold. And each of them has their own kind of independent twist or unique twist. Some of them are geared toward millennials, others are geared to more extended stay, and you see them everywhere from the economy all the way up into the luxury. So there are now more brand and brand offerings than ever before as these large parent companies try to capture as much of the market as possible. One to pay attention to here is Oyo. They're a brand new hotel company. So as you'll see on the next slide, from our revenue standpoint, Really the takeaway here, all this is showing is the percent increase month to month over the previous year. And you can see that 112 months out of the last 115, we've seen positive growth. But from the hotel side, very similar to what Melissa was showing earlier, we're starting to see those increases getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Another indicator that we may be heading into the downside of this particular cycle. And you'll see very similar to the numbers that Melissa shared. Food and beverage was down 3% in traffic and up 3% in check average. We're seeing something very similar, as you'll see on the next slide with the data across all of our chain scales, economy to luxury. You can see that occupancy, so in essence, foot traffic in the hotel world is going to be down, but our average daily rate, or ADR, is going to be up. So we're going to see less people, but the hotel version of the check average is going to increase. And the hotel world equivalent of comp sales would be our RevPAR, revenue per available room. That's projected to increase slightly in 2020, driven through the increase in average daily rate or check average. So what we can do to prepare for the hotel world, revenue management is going to be an absolute key for us. As you'll see, that provides a training opportunity for hotel trainers to maximize their average daily rate and increase that average guest check. The third component for hotels, understand the staffing model and make necessary staffing changes to adapt to what the business levels are.
And Colby, I'll add there from a restaurant side, we're also looking at different ways to maximize our average guest checks. I know with First Watch, we've recently started a fresh juice program and shareables that we offer at the table. Anything, again, to bring those guest check averages up. To consider in these staffing changes, because again, if we do go down this path of third-party delivery, it may actually mean adding staff so that we have the right people in the right places to be able to package and have it all ready to go.
Sounds like we're trying to solve for the same problems.
Yes. So now we're going to go into some of the workforce trends that we're coming into. So some of our biggest challenges and opportunities that we'll be seeing in 2020, and I'm sure it won't be a surprise to the majority of you that are on the webinar with us. But obviously we have to work really hard to be able to find, retain, and really truly engage our talent. And so we all know that we are, living in a world with an ever-shrinking pool of potential job candidates. And so being able to capture those people as quickly as possible is really the name of the game. I know in our organization, we've actually now have artificial intelligence, someone who, as soon as somebody clicks on our careers webpage, kind of reaches out and says, can we schedule you for an interview? Because we know that that is an opportunity we need to capture almost immediately. And again, we're also doing several things to retain and engage the employees that we have. So we're going to kind of go a little bit more into detail here.
Yeah, so here's the latest from TDN2K that I know you all are feeling right now. When we look at the average hourly employee turnover, it's around 114%, which is a tough market right now. You think about training and the impact that it has on your training departments when you have turnover that high. Management turnover is around 38%. And then when we talk about pay, year-over-year pay, I think this is really interesting, is that we're seeing pay increases across the board, which is really, you're seeing a lot of states take minimum wage increases, but also the turnover is so high. Unemployment is at the lowest that it's been since the 60s. You have to if you want the right employees, you have to pay. So we're seeing hourly increase. We're also seeing line cooks increase. Interestingly, we're not seeing as big of an increase for our management levels. So limited service is at 2.3% year-over-year growth, and full service is really only at 1.7. So I think what we're seeing along the industry trends is that your pay overall is going up. You hear that if you hear a lot of these calls from executives with public companies talking about their earnings. They're saying labor is their pain point right now because of the increase that they're paying in labor. So you're seeing these numbers, but what's happening is that we're seeing it really in the hourly level and not impacting the management level as much. We also asked our members, do they feel that they're understaffed? I'm sure I can get a few amens from a few of the people here on this webinar. Of 69% reported that they're understaffed in the front of the house, and 93% state that they're understaffed in the back of the house, which, combined with that turnover, really makes it just a tough market. And you're trying to train and do it right, but when you're trying to train knowing that you're also understaffed and turning over employees so quickly, it's really a challenge. And we're going to talk about later in the webinar where we can find some wins in that. Colby, I think you have some numbers around turnover in lodging.
Yeah, absolutely. We see some of the same trends in front of the house, back of the house, line staff, but one of the really scary things for us is what we're seeing as an industry at the general manager level. So we're up significantly, over 5% in GM turnover from where we were back in 2016. And for new hotels that are opening, and there's a significant pipeline in the United States that are brand new hotels opening, we see up to 70% of general managers turned over within the first 12 months of that hotel opening. So lodging is getting into some critical staffing levels. We need to come up with some new solutions. Something that scared me, it made the rest of my hair, what I have left, stand straight up, was from a presentation from American Hotel and Lodging that estimates that for all of hospitality, here restaurants included, we have almost 1 million open positions every month within our industry. So clearly we have some new industry things that we need to start considering from a training and development standpoint. And I think they really lead us into what some of the trends are for hotels. So I think we have some side-by-side if you want to roll us into that there, Melissa.
Yeah, so this is the side-by-side of restaurants and lodging. We split this up between front of the house and back of the house and unit level manager. And you can see that there's differences between lodging and restaurants. What's interesting to me is that back of the house has always been really the pain point that we've been seeing year over year. To be able to staff your back of the house has been a struggle. But what's interesting is that this year's it's shifted to the front of the house. So I think that's really indicative of just how big many opportunities are out there for a lot of these hourly staff, not only from our industry. I mean, Colby, you mentioned those 900,000 open positions, but we now have competition coming from other places. Why don't, instead of working in a restaurant or a hotel where I have to have a set schedule, why don't I just drive an Uber when I want to do it? So it's an interesting place to be for our industry, and really continues to be where we have to think about this really from an innovative way. When we also look at it, when are they leaving? This is from year over year, 2017 to 2018. I could tell you 2019 is looking just as grim. But we look at front of the house and back of the house and when they're leaving. You have a quarter of your team members leaving, really a quarter to a third leaving within the first 30 days. so they're not making it past that 30-day mark. And half of them are leaving within less than 90 days. So I put this up here because I know that this is one that kind of scratches your head and makes you wonder, how do you staff to this? Jen, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it truly just shows that when you make a hire, you absolutely have to hook them into why, you know, they chose to come work for your organization to begin with. And that really comes to the culture and the kindness and the things that you do to make sure that your employees feel absolutely welcome. I know that at First Watch, we're trying to think differently about, you know, ways to keep our employees. In fact, we actually, about a year and a half ago, rolled out a fully funded high school education program, which might sound crazy, but, you know, there's statistics out there that say up to 20% of people who are in entry-level positions in the hospitality industry may not have their high school diploma. So we do a fully funded program there and offer tuition reimbursement, which many, many companies do as well. But beyond that, it's really about the leadership that we have in each one of our restaurants. Because again, from the home office perspective, we can offer really great benefits, but it comes down to the leadership in each individual restaurant and whether or not they're showing them that kindness and engaging with them as soon as they start. So that's a big one for us.
Yeah, and then when you look at too, you know, what is this all costing us? Because that's the part that is really hard to digest. This came from a recent survey from TDN2K. This is the cost of turnover per employee. This is average. Just wanted to throw that out there. So this is an average. You know, this could be more if you're looking at a fine dining location. It might be a little bit less if you're looking at QSR. So this is average across the board. But it's about $1,800 per hourly employee, $10,000, a little more than $10,000 per restaurant manager, and close to $14,000 per general manager. So when you put these numbers attached to the 114% turnover, close to 40% manager, we're talking about real dollars here that I think, you know, this is great opportunity for training to potentially have an impact on cost savings, which is not naturally a place that we think that we would go as trainers, is that, hey, training is usually considered a cost, right, to the company, but can we save money by retaining them even longer? So any thoughts from the hotel side, Colby, on this?
Very interesting on the general manager side. Most of the major brands, including Best Western, have a requirement that new general managers get sent to kind of the corporate brand training within the first 90 days they're on the job, so they can get oriented into what some of the brand requirements are, and then the support programs that all the brands offer their different hotels. And we're seeing a really big trend now where hotel owners are failing to meet that requirement because they're not sure their new general manager is going to be around in 90 days. So we're definitely starting to see that trend across all hotel companies, across all the different chain scales from luxury to economy, which reflects exactly what you're saying. So there's now delays in even getting them trained up, which is creating some negative impact to the guest.
Yeah, I would add the same thing. At First Watch, we're investing in our hires. So any manager, same thing as what Colby just said. So any manager that starts with us, we're investing in them. We bring them here to the home office to spend a full week to go through leadership training. It's not where we're going to teach them how to chop herbs, but instead they're here really to learn about their own personal leadership style. And so it's really a opportunity for them to kind of internally look at who they are. And while they're here, we really try and immerse them in our culture because, again, these numbers are terrifying if you really think about it. And when you think about the industry turnover, it's very scary.
Sounds like a great program, Jen.
All right.
So clearly,
Colby, you got this?
No, please, Jen, go.
So we're going to ask another question for all of those of you that are on the webinar with us. So we would love to hear from you why you believe your employees are leaving. So I believe Tara's going to put the question up there for a quick poll. And again, same as before, just go ahead and click on one of those answers. And we'll just have a brief pause here while we wait for the information to come in. All right. Looks like it's coming up now. All right, so it looks like most of you are saying, up to 54% are saying that higher pay, better compensation are the reasons why people are leaving. And I know Melissa mentioned earlier that that's one of the areas where companies are realizing they're having to increase the pay and better compensation to kind of combat this issue. Melissa, do you have anything to add on this one? I know you're going to talk about it here in the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually asked our members this question with the data that we're seeing come through TDN2K. So top reasons why employees are leaving? Hourly employees, job abandonment. We're seeing this happen more and more where people are just not showing up for the job. You have no idea why they're leaving. They just decide not to show up. Personal reasons, really along the same lines, and then higher paying job. Management is higher compensation, immediate promotion at another company. And, you know, we talked about it at the very beginning, but that poor work-life balance. So I think that this is the reality here. The ones in green are all things that we can kind of, in our span of control, can impact pretty quickly. So I think the other ones are just going to take us some time to do.
I found this really interesting and kind of scary at the same time, because apparently the only time I'm going to find that I get to step away from work is if I get to call in rich and hit the lottery. Most of the labor force in the U.S. is starting to get older. We're starting to see those seasoned people with experience either come back into the workforce or stay in the workforce longer than ever before. So we can see that we're starting to drop in that 16 to 24 year, starting to see some negative growth there. Also 45 to 54. And the big increases are in staff 65 and older. So I think that also indicates that we're looking for maybe some non-traditional staff members, finding them from places that maybe we hadn't tapped into previously because of some of the turnover that the industry is experiencing.
So, and what I find absolutely fascinating about that past slide as well is that we talk so much about the millennials and the younger generations that are coming into the industry and how we need to target our training to them. But what I see there is that we have to have very unique ways of training different generations, because there will be so many different generations in the workforce. So it's very interesting to me. Obviously, many of you mentioned the work-life balance piece, which is very important. And this slide basically says that 11% of general managers strongly agree that their job allows them to spend quality time with their family, 11%. So I'm fortunate in that, you know, the company that I work for, like I mentioned, we're breakfast, brunch, and lunch. So we do have that going for us, because one of the things we can say is that we have no nights ever, which allows our employees, some of which like to get a second job in the evenings, and also for other employees, it's that opportunity to make it to their kids' Little League game or whatever it is they want to do. But work-life balance is very important, obviously, to everybody. All right, so the other piece here is that restaurants are offering more money to attract talent and using different incentives in recruiting, especially in challenging markets. And again, to tag into what I do, we're going into new markets all the time. We're fairly well known in the Florida area or the Southeast, but as we grow up into Michigan and this next year we'll be reaching into Chicago, we're constantly trying to find ways to help people know who we are as a company and what we offer. And along with that is definitely referral bonuses. And we've had over 1,500 referrals for management just this year alone. And that's become a really important program for us to have because word of mouth is a big part of this.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump into things that are really working for best-in-class companies. So at TDN2K, we say the best versus the rest. The best-in-class are those that are outperforming the market over the last 24 months. So they really, truly are the best in sales and traffic, and we try to learn, what can we learn from these companies? There's about 30 of them that rose to the top. So I've added a couple of really interesting tidbits around this that I think attributes directly to you all. The best continue to provide excellent service. So when we ask about the net sentiment around overall their service, they're just delivering service so much more than their peers, and it's showing in their results. And their sales and traffics are increasing, are better than the others, and that service knowledge continues to be at the top. Not only the experience, but is my server knowledgeable? The other piece of this, of course, which isn't hard to figure out, is that the best are better at retaining members. Best-in-class companies have a 29.7% retention rate, where the rest are at 35.3%. This actually has gone up more, but you see there's a big difference between those that are investing in their people. So I think a lot of times when you see sales and traffic decrease, the first thing to think about is to reduce your staffing, and that might not always be the right thing to do. It might that might be the actual opposite effect when you're already seeing customers talk about their net sentiment of their experience in the restaurant. They might not come back if they feel like they're not being waited on. They have to wait a long time, or they're just not getting great service. One other thing that I wanted to bring attention to from the TDN2K research is what is working to increase retention among your hourly managers and general managers. We asked this, what's the most effective, second and third most effective? There's a lot on this screen, but I did want to pay attention to, we have 9 things here that have been listed by executives of the most effective ways to improve retention. Out of those, training owns 4. So I think that there's a great story for you all to bring back to your executives when you're talking about how important your role is in combating this retention issue. A lot of this falls into your court, which is kind of scary, but also really a great opportunity for you all to shine.
Yes, I look at this slide as job security for all of us, because ultimately it comes down to people want the opportunity to be developed. They want the chance for career growth and to see a career path forward in front of them. And I think this especially comes into play with not only managers, but with hourly employees who may start to feel stagnant in the positions that they're in. And so giving them that opportunity to see that there is a future for them in the organization is a big part of it. Colby, did you have anything on this one?
Jen, I couldn't agree more. I mean, really, the pace of change in hospitality has always been there, but maybe it's been increasing over the last little while. And the focus that the training team has, we may see it shifting in terms of helping businesses solve new problems. Clearly, retention and turnover are the big things that the industry is focused on now. I think this provides tremendous opportunity for all the training departments to understand the problems that the organizations are going through and how the training teams can help. Maybe transitioning slightly into what would be more traditional human resources roles, but with our know-how, being able to do that. And I also think these really highlight make the best investments that could potentially drive the biggest return on investment within our organizations. Again, with the training right in the middle of the show.
All right, so we have another question for everybody that's joined us on the webinar. So the big question is it the chicken or the egg? So what do you work on solving first? So once again, go ahead and select your answer, and we'll throw the results up here shortly. All right, so makes sense considering the audience, but we all believe that one thing that we can solve is this idea of, training and really trying to retain our employees and do the best that we can. So 49% feel that is the case.
Thanks, Jen. So we're going to breeze through the next few slides because I know we're running out of time, and I want to make sure we get through any questions that you guys might have if you submit those. So we're now going to go through the results of the Trends in Training survey that was conducted by Chart for Chart members, which is a nice value add, as well as TDN2K. So I think, Colby, you're taking us through the first couple of slides.
Yeah, so the first about investments in terms of the total percentage of sales. And I think the interesting takeaway for the people that participated in the survey, and then a takeaway for the webinar, is that is increasing, which is great for the training departments. It means there's going to be more resources available. I think this is an indicator of we're on more to do. There's more opportunities to train, things that we highlighted in terms of that retention problem to solve. So ask yourself what you're spending, if you know, and then are you increasing as your comp set is increasing? If you're not, maybe that's something to consider. And as you'll see on the next slide, when we looked at the companies increasing training headcounts, here you're seeing it for restaurants as well as lodging. We can see that we have some that have stayed the same for lodging, 71% versus 46% that have stayed the same for restaurants. But I'd like to see the increase. 34% of restaurants reported that they increased their headcounts in training. There was no increase in lodging, unfortunately. So not only are we seeing that spending go up, but we're seeing those dollars being spent in terms of headcount, not just technology investments.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. So the external resources piece is also a big part of this, and I think that we're spending more money on off-the-shelf products. I think some of this comes into play with some of the certifications that are required. I also think some of it is the environment that we live in. So the entire Me Too movement, a lot of companies are reaching out for off-the-shelf programs for non-harassment, things like that, which is potentially part of the reason why we're seeing this external resource number increasing. And here, one of the things I think lodging has always done a really great job of is that they already were really big in bringing in external resources for training, and now we're seeing that restaurants are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, Jen, I think you touched on it for us in terms of that compliance training and maybe some more of that HR component, removing some liability for companies and making sure that they are providing safe and harassment-free workplaces.
This slide here ties in once again to what I mentioned before. It's the idea that the training is reporting to human resources more often, and I think again that ties into a little bit of the environment that we are a part of here. So I know here in my organization from training, I've reported to HR, I've reported to our operations, and now I'm back to reporting into HR. And so much of that comes down to the developments that we offer the employees and the resources that we have for them. So most restaurants are planning to invest in e-learning this next year. I know we rolled out a learning management system just this last year, and we're continuing to add programs to it daily. In fact, we're constantly telling our teams in the field that it's going to be becoming even more robust because it's just a really great way to get a consistent message across to all of our employees. So you're seeing that huge jump in e-learning. As I mentioned before, lodging's already done so much with kind of the LMS piece. I think they jumped on board that wagon a lot faster than restaurants did, and so now we're kind of making up for that.
I couldn't agree more. We see e-learning investments, but I think we were at the party before the restaurant industry.
Yeah, so this next slide here, though, you know, you're finding out more and more because we're doing things online from a training perspective. There's always that concern of, well, how are they going to take their training? Can they take it in the restaurant, or can you prevent them from taking it home where they may not be able to be paid for it? And so this is a concern for us at First Watch because although we offer the learning management system, you know, we've provided Chromebooks and tablets in our restaurants so that they can take the training there where they're actually punched into the clock or clocked in, because again, we don't want to risk them taking any kind of courses at home and not being paid for their time.
Yeah, Jen, real quick on this. I know, I think the majority of us here have teenage kids, so it's no surprise that they spend 10 hours a day in front of a screen. But I also think that this is really important to pay attention when we have more generations in the workforce than ever before, and training to what works best for them to learn is really, really important.
So this gets back to what I was mentioning, is that most of the e-learning is still done through desktops at work. And as I mentioned, we are rolling out programs where we have our employees sit in a quiet area of the restaurant. Of course, we're very fortunate because our restaurants close every day at 2:30 in the afternoon. So we can keep our employees a little longer in the afternoon to complete some of this. But it is a challenge for the restaurants. And so making sure that you offer those opportunities. One thing we try to stay away from is having our employees use their smartphones, but I know some companies out there are embracing that as well.
Great. The next couple of slides, we just have a few more are around the information that we got from the survey, and we just pulled a couple of snippets out. The full report is going to be available, of course, to CHART members and those that participated, but the ones that we pulled out are the ones that we kind of saw significant difference in turnover numbers. So what impact did that have? So the first one is in leadership development for managers, lowers turnover. What's interesting in this is the leadership aspect is we do a lot of training around how to open and close a store, all the operations aspect, but we've really kind of got away from how do you be a really good leader? How do you lead a multi-generation staff that has lots of different needs and wants, that wants to be flexible on their schedule, etc. So the companies that are really investing on the leadership, how to really build incredible leaders, are showing that it's paying off in their turnover numbers. We're also seeing those that are where there's more spend in the new hire orientation. So back of the house and front of the house, we're seeing significant differences here between an hour and a half of out orientation or more. So those that are investing more on the front end are seeing the numbers being impacted in a significant way. Also, those companies that are allocating more on-the-job training to new hire are seeing lower turnover. So, you know, a lot of the times we go straight to the easy ways to know that we can train, but that on-the-job training will always continue to be really, really important and impact our turnover numbers. And then 2 more slides here. Restaurants are allocating more in-person training during new hire orientations. So making it sure that it's in person, it really seems to impact management level, by the way. And then more instructor-led training to existing managers. So we talk about a lot of the new hire, and you see the numbers on the turnover numbers, but the existing front of the house, back of the house management turnover, you still see big changes in this too. So it's ongoing, not just for our new hires, which tend to be an area of focus with the turnover being so high. So with that, I think we've concluded. I know we have a couple of questions. I believe, Sarah, we can answer those right now before we go into final thoughts.
That would be great. The first question is the cost of turnover based on a specific time to fill?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that cost of turnover does include opportunity costs. So that position time to be filled is included in that number.
All right. And then the next one is, outside of competitive pay, referrals, and more immediate scheduling of interviews, how have you successfully kept up with hiring needs, specifically without sacrificing on the quality of new team members?
I've got an interesting one from the hotel side. We started to see some shifts in teams. So before there might have been, say, one sales manager handling a set of accounts. That sales manager transitions. It takes time to bring up the replacement to speed, and there's some lost revenue that is reflected. So we're seeing more property shift to kind of teams. So everybody, instead of individual kind of markets, everybody kind of sharing all of the work equally. So if there is some transition, there's not that loss of experience, and new people can quickly be brought up to speed without affecting the guests or affecting revenue.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think that cross-training is a big part of success there, because the more that your existing team members know how to run the various departments or be active in them, then, you know, if there is loss of staff or we bring new people on, it seems like they're more easily able to absorb that. We also have, you know, leaders in our restaurants that help us run the shifts that are key employees, and we really try and grow that group of individuals, because they tend to take on more ownership when new employees start. So it's a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more of a warm environment.
Thank you. The next one, do you feel like an overemphasis on referral bonuses can increase the frequency of turnover industry-wide? Is this a case of the genie is out of the bottle and now managers have no choice but to depend on referral bonuses, since more companies do now?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So I think that referral bonuses that I've seen over the years have gone away and come back, gone away and come back. I don't think it's a genie in the bottle. I think that right now, with what's happening, with how competitive it is, anything that you can do that you think is going to really help you get that key team member, whether it's hourly or a manager, companies are willing to do. And I hate to say it, but at this point, I think it's kind of all gloves are off. Innovation is key. Pay is going to continue to be key. If you try to underpay, you will not have quality employees. So, you know, I've seen people get creative on this, on also implementing extra referral bonuses or pay if the person stays for 90 days or stays for a year. So we're seeing those things happen as well. So I think that you're just going to continue to have to innovate on this side. You're going to continue to have to keep an open mind, and you're going to have to continue to pay well.
Thank you. That is all of, oh, actually there is one more. Give me just a second. What is the next hotel service delivery trend we should be considering developing training for?
Personalization. The hotel industry is data rich and process poor. We have a lot of information on guests, what their preferences are, what they like, what they don't like. And through technology investments, we could, you know, you check in mobilely, the room gets sent to the temperature you want, the pillows that you like are in the room. There's a million different things that we can do to personalize the experience for guests. That'll be in the next innovation wave, in my opinion.
Outstanding. Thank you. Those are all the questions that came in, and we are right about the end of our time. I just want to thank Melissa, Colby, and Jennifer, some of the industry leading professionals on their subject matter, and we are just so lucky to have you as members and partners, and thank you so much for sharing with us today. Again, this webinar is recorded and will be available on the CHART website, as will the slide deck. It will be on the CHART website, which is www.chart.org, under training tools, and then training trend study. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you again to our presenters, and I wish you a great day. Thank you.
That was a humdinger of an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.